switch over. I do have a review, so I'm
Yes.
gonna switch over to that real quick.
Wait, topic?
Yeah, we don't really have a
Don't have a
topic,
topic.
so like, and like I said, we've been kind of BSing, and we've done 45
Yeah,
minutes already, so we might as well.
somehow.
So the games
Yeah.
that I'm reviewing are the Kengo series. If you don't know what Kengo is, it's actually the spiritual successor to the Bushido Blade games.
Mm.
So it's all very realistic samurai sword combat is what these are based on. The first one I have, where is it? It's somewhere without or not in my reach, but it's yeah, the first one released on PlayStation 2. It's pretty simple game. You know, make a samurai and you train him into a samurai badass. Um you there's a whole bunch of different like training modes where you can like cut bamboo or like meditate under a waterfall, and these all like raise your stats. And then when you go and do fights, you learn new moves and techniques, and you can then apply those to your different stances to make these unbeatable combinations. And it's really fun. It was kind of a sleeper hit on the PlayStation 2. Like I said, people that followed the Bushido Blade series were familiar with it. But you know, definitely a sleeper. Not a lot of people knew about these games. I only knew about them because I'm obsessed with samurai. So like,
Yeah.
I played them. The first one's definitely the simplest of all of them. You basically just train and fight, and there isn't really much of a story to be spoken of. With the second one, which never came out in the United States, I have it right here. It did come out in Europe though, so this one's called Sword of the Samurai.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And it kind of adds some new elements. It keeps some of the basic principles of the first one, where you just like train and learn new things, but then it adds like a little bit of story to it. You start out just at like a random fight in a field. Some dude sees you and is like, "Hey, you're kind of a badass. Come train at this dojo." You fight in the dojo, and once you complete all the challenges there, they're like, "Okay, there's a tournament coming, and if you fight in this tournament, then you can go and fight in this tournament in Kyoto, right? Like the capital." And so you do the tournament and you win, and that opens up like a whole new element of gameplay where you start being able to encounter Kengo, which are sword masters, which are all like historical famous sword masters like Miyamoto Musashi and freaking I'm dropping names right now, but like, you know, famous Japanese swordsmen of the time. Yagyu Jubei, Ryomo Sakamoto, like all these like famous swordsmen of the time.
We don't know. Come on.
Which is cool. And then if you beat them, you can learn their entire move sets.
Oh wow,
which is cool.
I assume there's no killing in this.
There's definitely killing. In fact,
you're murdering famous samurai.
Yes. In fact, in order to be able to fight Musashi, who's like the main or like the final boss of the game, you have to kill pretty much all of the other swordsmen, all of the other.
Damn.
Yeah. Literally kill them.
All right, never mind.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was.
And then there's a little bit of story spread throughout, but it's fairly thin. But it's a very fun gameplay experience. Kengo 3 never came out anywhere but Japan. And so that was actually a real challenge to play. I do have that game too. Right here. So this was really cool. I got this, and I was able to play it with the help of my friend Gabe, who was streaming with me last night, and his wife helping me translate it over Discord, and then also I used Google Translate to kind of speed things up. But it does essentially the same thing that Kengo 2 does, but takes it even a step further and lets you train at more dojos, and there's more missions that you can go on, and it's just really cool. It was quite a challenge to try and figure out how to play this game without,
Yeah, yeah.
being a native speaker. Um, but we got through it. It was cool. And then the final game, which is what we see on screen right now, which just been staring at freaking Jubei forever. Let's I'm gonna skip ahead so we can
Jubei
see some
Shizuka.
fighting. Um this game was the only game that was not released on the PlayStation 2. So 1, 2, and 3 are all PlayStation 2 games, and then 4, which is called Kengo Legend of the Nine, was only released on Xbox 360, which is very strange. Um, the graphics are obviously a very big improvement. They did improve the fighting mechanics. As you can see, I'm able to like grapple with people and do like these cool like
Oh, that's
quick
awesome.
kills and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. But
Oh,
they
damn. This
they
is
kind
sick.
of arcadified the game and removed a lot of like the really cool customization elements that the previous games did, while also at the same time adding more story. So there's like really good things they did for this game, and then really bad things they did for this game, um, because it's not anywhere near as customizable and intuitive as the previous Kengo games, which was a real bummer. And I think why this game didn't do as well, as wasn't as popular as the previous ones. Um, but like I said, it's still very fun to play. And each character, so instead of creating your own samurai in this game, you get to play as the Kengo, as the sword masters. So like you can
Ah,
start out the game as Miyamoto Musashi, you know, or Yagyu Jubei. Actually, he's unlockable. But you get what I'm saying. Like as you play through the game, you unlock different samurai and you go through. My one complaint about the story in this one is that um some of these characters, some of these actual historical figures uh lived, there's like 2 to 300 years gap in when they lived. But then
oops.
like they're encountering each other within the story modes of these games. So like from a historical standpoint, game doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you don't know that and you don't care about that, it's cool because each character has their own story mode, which is an enhancement from the previous games. So that's kind of neat.
That's really
Um,
cool.
but yeah,
It looks a lot
overall,
better than I thought it would.
yeah. So this one's the Xbox 360 one. I haven't
Mm.
shown any gameplay from the previous ones. I could probably pull it up, but I don't want to mess with that right now. I should have like spliced these videos together so that you guys could see all the, different
Ooh.
transitions from all the games. But yeah, this is definitely by far the best looking of all the Kengo games. Let's see. Is there any other points we want to hit on? The gameplay's fun. The story's kind of meh. Um, the art, like I said, this is the best looking one. The PS2 ones don't look that great. I mean, they're definitely like competent enough for the time, but they're nothing special. The music is terrible in all of them
Oh,
except for
no.
Kengo Legend of the Nine. The music is fine in this game. It's just like traditional Japanese music in this game. In the previous one, or in the previous three, there's almost no music. It's like pretty quiet
Huh.
a lot of the times. You hear like, birds chirping and cicadas doing their little shits, but like there really isn't much music to be spoken of. There is some, but not a lot. Sound design also not the best, but like not terrible. Like it gets the job done, but it's not great. And I think they use the same like sword sound effects throughout every single one of these games.
That is funny.
Yeah. Um Let's see. How long does it take? These games can take a very long time, but they're also very replayable and customizable in their own ways. So you know, you could depends on what you're trying to accomplish in these games, but you could put hundreds of hours into them if you wanted to. I would say, with the exception of Kengo Legend of the Nine, which each story mode takes probably about an hour, maybe an hour and a half for each character's story. There are other modes, like there's like a PvP mode and like, some challenge modes and things like that. But like, as far as like completing the story with one character, you're not looking at a whole lot of time in this final one. Are the games difficult? Yes, all of them are very difficult. All of them. Once you learn how to play them, they start to become a lot easier. Just like any challenging game,
Yeah.
but like just jumping in from the start, they're incredibly difficult and unforgiving. Like the sword play is pretty realistic. So if you get hit with like, a decent attack, you'll bleed out and die. And like, even just,
Oof.
especially in the earlier games, one hit can kill you, if you're not careful. Um, so just like the Bushido Blade games, they're pretty realistic in that way. Would I play a sequel? Absolutely. I played all four of them. Even the ones that never came out in the United States. I, you know, definitely jumped through some hoops to just be able to play them. That's how much I love these games. Um,
Oh, yeah.
Overall rating and impression. So this is going to be tricky because uh, there's obviously context involved. Number one, how old these games are. Number two, how kind of niche they are. Um, and yeah, I mean those are kind of the two biggest factors, right? So, um, Kengo one, I would say, if you're like a samurai enthusiast, that's like a 7. Um, for anyone else, it's probably like a 5. um, and I would give a similar score for the next two games, right?
Oof.
So for Kengo 2, I would say, if you're like a samurai and like realistic sword fighting game enthusiast, 7.5, maybe 8. But then if you're not, you're probably still looking at around like a 5.5 or something like that. Kengo
Pretty bad.
3 is the best of the series, if you ask me. But the problem is it's only in Japanese.
That's kind of
So
shitty.
what I would say would be probably like a high 8s for a samurai enthusiast. I'd probably say like 8.9 if you spoke the language and were a fan of this style of game. 8.9. But because it's not not in English, and you have to import it, you're gonna have to find a clever way to translate it or figure out how to even play the game. That's gonna take it down quite a bit, right? So we're
Yeah.
back down somewhere in the 5s. um and then the final game, Kengo Legend of the Nine, we're going to flip the script, right? Because for an enthusiast like me, it doesn't really hit the marks that these games did. But for like a more casual player who wants a more arcadey style samurai game, it's going to be a lot better, right? It's more interesting. So for the enthusiast out there, I would say, maybe 7.6 on this one. No, actually, I'd
Uh,
probably go a little lower, probably like 7.3, right? Um and then for, just a casual player, all the things considered, I'd actually say maybe 7.8 or 9, right?
huh.
Because it's a much more approachable game than any of the others, but it lacks some of the really cool mechanics and customization that the previous games had. So, Those are my overall ratings and impressions for the Kengo series. Like I said, if you are an enthusiast, these are must play games. Similar to the Way of the Samurai stuff. But if you're not, and considering how difficult it is to get a hold of all of these games except for the first one, actually, if you have an Xbox 360, it's pretty easy to get a hold of The Legend of the Nine as well. But otherwise, yeah, they're hard to get a hold of, and they're very niche. So it's hard to recommend these for casual players. Um, but yeah, that's it.
They
There's the
sound
review.
fine.
Yeah, for me they're awesome. I love these games. I could spend hours in them, but yeah, like I said, it's hard to recommend. Anyway, let's switch back.